Hi, so it's July 24th, it's about 10:30 p.m. and tomorrow, or really an hour and a half from now, there's a 24-hour challenge to record what you're doing in one day, and I'm here in Vantage, Washington, my favorite rest stop. Let me see what we can see from here. That's the moon over there. Jupiter and Saturn. Alright, let me dim my lights so we can see. That's Jupiter. And if you zoom in, you can see some of the moons of Jupiter. And earlier this week, there was a comet, which would be behind us. It's not really visible unless you really zoom in. I can't really do that in the video mode. But I got some good photographs, and I'll probably make a video with one of those, with the collection of all the photographs that I got. And I'm spending the night here again. I spent last night at a different rest stop with a different vantage point. Some of my favorite... Actually, I discovered this place quite by accident, actually. 4 summers ago, I was dating a girl who was quite a bit younger than me. She was still living with her parents. And one day we got into an argument because she thought I was cheating on her, and I kind of was. I wasn't cheating on her with another girl, but I was cheating on her with a hobby of mine. But in her mind, she thought that was cheating. And we got into a serious argument, and I stormed out of her home, and I was about to head back to my home just 3-4 miles away. But I got so lost in thought that I just decided to go see some scenery, and before I knew it, I was lost. And it's kind of crazy, but this is a good 2 hours from where we were living in Redmond, and I ended up here. And I remember that night, the Milky Way being out, and Jupiter and Saturn were already getting pretty close to one another. This was in 2016. Jupiter and Saturn come into conjunction once every 20 years. The unfortunate part of this particular conjunction is that we didn't send a spacecraft up there this time. Usually every 20 years we get an opportunity to fly past Jupiter and follow that with Saturn. Every 175 years we can also do Uranus and Neptune. Unfortunately, 2020, this conjunction we should have launched a few years ago. Last year I actually did a calculation one time. Last year we still had an opportunity with the Juno spacecraft. We could have left Jupiter and gone to Saturn. Of course, once we got to Saturn, there's probably not much we can do because Juno relies on solar energy, and Saturn being twice as far as Jupiter, it probably wouldn't be able to run most of its instruments. But we might have been able to see at least photographs, and at the same time we could just dispose of Juno that way, right? Because at the end of the life of Juno, we have to get rid of it. So it doesn't contaminate the solar system. If we could fly past Saturn and then go out of the solar system, at least we could keep Juno intact, right? I would much rather that than to have it burn up in the atmosphere of Jupiter. But unfortunately, it's too late for that now. So we missed our chance to go to Saturn. I'm very fortunate to... I was thinking about all that's gone wrong this year, you know. COVID-19, rioting, and obviously having lost a couple of jobs and going back to work now, and obviously losing touch with family and friends, social distancing, not being able to go on vacation. But then I realized that it's a miracle that I am alive today, because I think about past times when things could have turned out very differently, including very recently, actually. I was out in Ellensburg, not far from here, back in January to view a lunar eclipse, January 2019 actually. I had climbed the slope in order to get a good vantage point. I wanted to go to higher ground so I could avoid having obstacles in my way. was trying to get the moon with the background stars and all that. And I spent a good 3 or 4 hours of getting photographs. I think I made a video with a collection of photographs at one point. At the end of that night, it was very dark, and as I was heading back to my car, I slipped. And I destroyed the camera. The screen got cracked. But when I looked at where I had fallen, I realized that had I fallen just a foot or two away from where I fell, I could have fell down a large embankment. And but I was still pretty disappointed about the camera, because that particular camera had traveled with me to a lot of places. It had gone to 3 different continents, 10 different countries. And I still have the camera. It still works, except you can't see what you're shooting. And it's still useful when I need to get a very long exposure. Okay. And then there was a time when things could have also ended very badly. I do private tutoring. One day a client had called me, or his mom had called me rather, and they called me at 10 in the morning, and which is a reasonable time to call, except that I was still asleep. And when I answered the call, I didn't know what I was saying, and they were asking me if I could switch the time. They wanted to meet at 11 that morning. And being half asleep, I agreed to it. And it wasn't until like half an hour later, oh my God, what did I agree to? And I jumped up and I raced out of the my apartment. I needed to get dressed, and it was a good distance. I ended up getting in my car to get dressed while driving at the same time. I ended up going 70, 80 miles an hour. On a bunch of city streets that were 30 or 40 miles an hour, and somehow I made it in one piece. But I got so furious that I ended up having to do that. It strengthened my resolve to get really good at my tutoring, because I needed to make up for that particular event, and so that wasn't the end of the world. But it made me realize that it's okay to call off if things are not going right. And it paid dividends, actually, because last November 2019, I had just gotten home from Taiwan. And one day, I got up and I wasn't feeling right. I had soreness, and I felt like my stomach was out of place and all that. And in the past, you know, because it had shown up so randomly in the morning, I would have dragged myself to work. I was working at a tutoring center at this time. But I remembered what had happened that time when I raced 80 miles an hour on the road. It was a completely different situation, but I reminded myself that I need to take care of myself. You know, if I go out and I get even more sick, I'm just going to miss more work. If I go out and get into a car accident, or I get a pricey ticket and I have to sell my car to pay that ticket, or I'm just gonna miss more work. I might as well have missed that one session to begin with and be done with it, right? And so I called off. And now looking back at it, I'm starting to wonder what I had that time. It was November of 2019. I had just come home from Taiwan, and I recently tested positive for the antibodies to COVID-19, and I probably dodged a big bullet there, now that I look back at it. I was only sick for a day and a half, though. That was kind of weird. I'm not sure, but given that I was just in Taiwan, who knows? At least things didn't get even worse. I recovered. My students didn't get sick, not that we know of anyway. And so that's good. There was another time where I dodged another bullet relating to COVID-19. I have been traveling in China. This was in 2018. I had a layover in China, and I had stayed in a hotel for a night, and I took a walk out, and I decided to try some new foods, because I've tried a lot of new foods here in the United States, and I'm out of new foods to try, you know. I went to a vendor on the street. I was going to try this dog meat. But when I asked him if he used MSG in his cooking, he laughed at me. And he asked me where I was from, and I said I have family in Taiwan. He said, "Oh no, that's a Taiwanese tradition. We would never do that in China. Don't you dare, slander our name here in China." He said something like that. It made me really uncomfortable the way he said it, like almost like he was going to, because he thought I might die if I eat MSG. He's going to put it in there just to see what kind of reaction I have and make fun of it or something like that. It made me uncomfortable, and I walked away from the vendor, and I was pretty disappointed at the time. I wanted to try something new. I haven't tried a new food for, wow, almost a decade now, actually. And I got home, and not long after that, we learned about the horrors of wet markets in China. So I'm glad I didn't try that out, and I'll probably think very hard before ever wanting to try a new food again. It's a blessing that we get all this nice food to eat in the first world. Maybe we should appreciate it and not try to think too hard about what we're eating. It's good to have a variety, but at some point you have to be satisfied with what is available. And then 10 years ago, I got into a sticky situation with a girl I was dating. She was taking advantage of me financially. I lost most of my life savings up till that point, and I almost dropped out of school, and I got totally lost. And I decided to take my own life. Fortunately, of course, it didn't succeed. But I was worried about how I would tell my family that I had dropped out of school. I was worried about ruining the image of our family. And plus, I had lost my life savings. I couldn't even do some other things to enjoy myself. And after my failed suicide attempt, one day I decided to go to a coin show. I used to collect coins, even though I didn't have any money to buy any coins. I decided to just take a walk in there because I thought life was almost over anyway, and had a good time. And then I came back and to the office where I was working on my PhD, and I came up with big results on my PhD work. And then I discovered that, hey, maybe things aren't so bad. That summer, see, what I realized that summer was that you don't need a girl to go out on a date with. You can go out on a date by yourself, and it's going to cost half as much. And you don't need a girl to go on vacation with. I went on vacation that summer. I got over my fear of flying. I used to have a big fear of flying. Kind of funny because today when I opened my Facebook, a friend of mine was talking about how she needed a car because she doesn't want to fly from, she's living in New York City now. She doesn't want to fly from New York to, where did she say it was? Boston or something like that. And I'm thinking in my head, car accidents probably kill the equivalent of COVID-19 every year, and you're worried about catching COVID-19 on a plane, especially if you're young, right? I don't know. I want to see the statistics of what's more dangerous now, driving or flying. I'm going to guess it's the driving, just my own experience as well. I've gotten into 3 car accidents in my life so far. But I'm not so upset anymore because there was another time. I'm not so upset about the girl taking advantage of me anymore. My mom always is. She's always reminding me about it. Every time we bring up the period of time when I was working my PhD, she gets very upset about that. But you know what? There was another time a girl saved my life. When I was 15 years old, I used to have a pretty atrocious diet. I was eating a lot of junk food. I drank nothing but soda. I was very overweight, and I didn't care because when I looked at people who had health problems in their 40s and 50s, that seemed like a long time away. See, when I was 15 years old, if you asked me to think about something that happened when I was 5 years old, right? That was 10 years ago, but it seemed like a past lifetime. And so it seemed like I had 3 or 4 more lifetimes before I had to worry about getting cancer or heart attacks or strokes or my mom had type 2 diabetes at the time. She has almost reversed course on it, so that's good. Or her father had liver cancer in Taiwan. Hepatitis B is pretty endemic there, and he had, and on top of that, they didn't have very good diets at the time either. Taiwan was still a developing country at the time that he was growing up. And so all of that was lifetimes away from where I was at the time. See, I don't see it that way anymore. I think about how I quit drinking soda when I was 15 years old, and that doesn't seem like a lifetime ago. That seems more like, it seems like Anyways, I ran out of space earlier on my card. Let's get back to the story. So I'm not so upset about having that girl who took advantage of me financially, because I owe my life to a girl today. Because when I was 16 years old, I was going to college part-time, and there was this girl that I was trying to start a conversation with in my classroom, and I needed to lose some weight first. And I went home and I instantly quit drinking soda. And I have now gone more than half of my lifetime without soda, and almost as long without any sugar at all, amongst other ingredients. And I also stopped consuming MSG. My health really improved a lot after the MSG, actually, which is why I gave up trying to eat the dog meat in China over it, and at the same time avoided potentially another dangerous substance. But so I owe my life to that. So whatever happens with the girl, as long as she doesn't kill me, I often feel I'm already on the winning side of the equation. Yeah, you might argue I might have quit drinking soda for something else, but that's not the way it happened. I quit over a girl. And so that's good. I'm trying to think where else my life could have ended badly, that I should so 17 years ago, I cleaned up a number of bad food choices. Unfortunately, part of the way that I quit drinking soda and quit eating sugar and quit eating all sorts of other crap was by making sure I always had a full stomach, so I would never crave any of these things. For many years, there was a time when I practically never went hungry. I used to eat a lot of bananas, actually. There was a time in my life when I would eat 10, 15 bananas a day, just to make sure I always had a full stomach, so that when I saw donuts, at my workplace, when I saw chips, or anything else, that I wouldn't be tempted. Yeah, I might think it was a tasty thing, but at least I had some control over the situation, and so I never gave in. But at the cost of always eating something else, right? The problem is that it became very habit-forming as well, to the point that I would have out-of-control food cravings for healthy foods. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I would get a craving for seaweed, believe it or not. I would get a craving for certain cuts of meat. I would get a craving for, I eat a lot of natural chips made of with coconut oil. I get cravings for stuff like that. It'd be 3, 4 in the morning. Especially when I was living in New York, I was living in a pretty dangerous part of town, and I would go out to get them. And I would cause all kinds of strife with coworkers, with my boss, with friends, because I had to leave certain events, or I'd be in a meeting with my boss and just want to get out of there to get foods that I was craving. And it drove me out insane. When I was working at a tutoring center last year, I was working at a university and also a tutoring center, and I had about half an hour in between. I went to get some lunch at Whole Foods. I was probably already craving it while I was at the university teaching. And the commute is about 5-10 minutes. And I pull into the Whole Foods, and I line up. There was no social distancing at the time, obviously. And I get to the tutoring center, and there's still 10 minutes to spare. I mean, I certainly don't want to eat in my car, because at the time I was also living in my car, and I don't like to make a mess in here. So I go into the center, and there's a nice office area and a classroom. And I thought, okay, I got 10 minutes of heaven, because I've been craving it. And the student shows up early. And I get into this fuss with him. I didn't want to tell him to go away, but I was trying to enjoy my food, and I couldn't speak at the same time. And I ended up spitting like half my lunch into the garbage can, because I was trying to eat and talk at the same time. And that's when I realized I got to do something about my eating habits. It's going to kill me one day, especially when I'm going out at 3 or 4 in the morning to satisfy a craving, when I'm traveling in a foreign country, and all that's on my mind is, you know, my food, and I'm not worried about my safety. And I realized that this is going to kill me one day. Or it's already costing me my jobs, my careers, my friends, my sanity, my sleep. It's going to kill me, if not directly, right? And so I made a resolution in 2020 to normalize my relationship with food. And part of the way I've been doing it is to occasionally, actually not so occasionally anymore, go on a 16 to 24 hour fast. That way I can take control of being more mindful when I'm actually eating, because during the 16 hours, you know, just earlier, just before I was recording this video, I almost want to reach for chocolate, and then I put it back. But it gives I eat a lot of baking chocolate, and I used to just subconsciously eat it. I mean, at the beginning of COVID, I hoarded up on a bunch of baking chocolate, and it didn't last as long as I thought it would, because a lot of it disappeared unconsciously, which is a habit I need to correct. It's good. You know, if nothing else, COVID-19, if it changes my unconscious eating habits, being more mindful of it, going to the grocery store certainly isn't the same now as it was last year, right? It's not open 24 hours anymore. When you go there, you have to be a lot more mindful, putting on a mask, social distancing, and just having people look at you like you're an idiot for going there, you know, just to try to satisfy a food craving, when people are worried about if they're going to have the supplies they need to survive the rest of the quarantine. You know, there's a lot of pressure to not do stuff like that. Plus, the whole COVID-19 started because somebody wanted to satisfy a weird food craving to begin with, right? So that's been a big reinforcement for me. Anyways, the crux of the issue is that I survived a lot of bullets. Any of these could have ended my life, right? Well, I almost killed myself one time. And then I almost got into a car accident because I couldn't say no to my client. I had a few tricky situations where I almost caught COVID-19, and then the out-of-control food cravings, putting myself in a dangerous situation, jeopardizing my career, not using good judgment with some of the girls I've been dating. So when you add it all up, the fact that we had to stay over COVID-19, it could have been a whole lot worse. So I'm not so upset anymore. You know, when Seattle got taken over by rioters, my life could have ended long before that. So now I treat every day like it's a bonus, because had any of these things happened in a different way, I might not be seeing today anyway. Thanks for watching.